Hi guys, this is Jarrett Morero with Before We're 30, a podcast all about being in your 20s and finding success. To my left, I have Jarrett Dunbar. Jarrett, explain your position at Nationwide a little bit.
So the position has changed a little bit. So right now I'm the public relations lead for Nationwide for our emerging business, innovation, pet insurance, and our marketing insurance. Yeah. So it's been a lot. I actually just took that role about a month ago, so it's a step up for me. It's exciting. We get to talk about how Nationwide is going to be, viewed in the next 50 years. A company like Nationwide is big and it's always changing. So prior to that, for 5 years, I handled all the PR for our marketing division. So that's our sports marketing team, our diverse marketing, cause marketing, advertising. So it was considered probably for me the greatest job I've ever had, the most fun I ever had, because we have 3 sports marketing platforms with the NFL, NASCAR, and the PGA. So if you're in Columbus and you're watching this podcast, if you've ever seen the Memorial Tournament, it's the Memorial Tournament presented by Nationwide. So I did all of the public relations for that platform as well as our other 2 sports marketing platforms.
Yeah, and so we're going to get a little bit into exactly what you do,
Sure.
and exactly what that process was like. But first, I start off with everybody, and that is in high school. Who's Jarrett? How was he raised? Where was he raised, and stuff like that.
So I grew up in Whitehall, which is on the east side of Columbus, just about 10 minutes away from Reynoldsburg. I went to a school called Liberty Christian Academy for middle school and for high school. I was small. I was as my friends like to say, I had a mouth that wrote checks that my body couldn't cash. So and when you're that way, you're small, you're 4'10" like I was, you try to be the loudest voice in the room, and the seniors routinely kick the crap out of me because of it, and which is fine. But I was lucky that I had a couple of seniors in my life that kind of took me under their wing and kind of showed me the ropes and taught me how to behave and how to handle myself. And so but I was extremely outgoing. I've always been kind of an extrovert on steroids. So and then it kind of steered me to where I wanted to be when I got older, when I grew up. And when I was 12 years old, I watched SportsCenter for the first time, and I saw Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann on television. I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be a sportscaster when I grow up. So, everything that I did from the time I was 13 to the time I was 18, kind of, everything I did, whether it would be taking a speech class or a writing class, it kind of led to doing something like that, where I knew I was going to get follow my passions and become a sports anchor. Graduated from high school in 1993, went to Ohio University, the Ohio University. I know a lot of Ohio State fans think that Ohio State is the Ohio State. Well, Ohio University was formed in 1804, so we beat you. I pursued my journalism degree at Ohio University. Right away, got into the broadcast segment of things. Freshman year, I remember getting up at 4:30 in the morning and going to going to the radio station and doing 5 a.m. sportscasts, just reading things off the AP wire. So I've always had a passion for public speaking. I've always had a passion for getting into broadcasting. So going back to high school, I played sports. I went to a small, high school, so I had the opportunity to play sports. I played soccer my freshman year and, was 4-year letterman in soccer, played basketball, those kind of things. Was always very driven, always had a pretty strong work ethic. That's something that my parents instilled in me pretty young. I had a paper route when I was a kid, so I was getting up at 4 a.m. every day, delivering the dispatch. And then, you go to school, and then after school, I would go to soccer practice or basketball practice. And then after that, I would go to work at Bob Evans, or I'd go to work at, one of the restaurants in town. So it was I was going pretty strong from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. every night. And, you just kind of rinse and repeat, do the things the next day. Yeah. So that work ethic really kind of served me well. I've always kind of been a morning person because of that. So it helped me when I would get up to do those morning broadcasts at WOVB in Athens, Ohio, and then it would serve me more when I would go through my professional career, because, I'd love to get up, love to start the day early, get going, and, if I sleep past, like today, I think I slept until 7:30, and I wasted the day. So it's but yeah, it was the typical childhood. I have a brother and a sister. They're both younger. My parents split up when I was 5, so it was one of those things you kind of have to navigate. But it's a story that a lot of kids go through. But it kind of made me. My parents are completely different people. My mother is. Well, I wouldn't say they're completely different people, but my mother is very much into. Was not into sports very much, but she's in arts and music, things like that. My dad was very much into sports, so I got the best of both worlds, which was really good. So that helped me on, to play sports when I was in high school, but at the same time when, I was very involved in choir, I was very involved in band in high school. So it's a good mix. I got the best out of both of them, so it really kind of helped me going through high school.
Did you find it at all when you were in high school, and you basically knew what you want to do? Did you find that you were one of the only people or one of your peers who knew that? Or
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think it's a rare thing. And it's something that I tell, my kids a lot, and I tell other people. I do a lot of public speaking to high schools and to colleges. And I think I'm the exception to the rule. I think most kids don't know what they want to be when they grow up, and that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes people a long time to find out what they want to do. One of the things that we're learning as we do more market research through the work that I'm doing now is that millennials, Gen Zers, those kind of folks, they do what they're called gig careers, right? They do something for a year, they'll like it, then they'll move on to something else, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, what I would tell people that are they're maybe questioning themselves, I don't have a direction, I don't have a path. That's fine. You'll find your path. You'll find your direction. Soak it all in.
Yeah.
You get one shot at life, right? So let's learn as much as we possibly can along the journey. And if you find something that you want to stick with and have a 40-year career doing, awesome. If you find something that you'd like to do for 2 years, and then every opportunity that you have will eventually lead to something else. For instance, if you would have told me coming out of high school that working for an insurance company was going to be the greatest job I ever had, I would have looked at you and said, "What are you smoking?" It's just not that way. Okay. But because of being open-minded and being willing to experience new things and learn new things, everything led to something different. And so, I got a broadcasting degree, and then I got a TV anchor job right out of college. Then I got a job working for the State Department of Insurance, which led me to Nationwide Insurance, which led me to working with people like Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Peyton Manning and, Thomas Davis and all these, these big sports names. So don't close your mind out to it because you don't think this is not where my career path's going. Mm-hmm. Don't shut doors. Keep those doors open. Keep your mind open.
Yeah. On a very smaller scale, when I was in high school, we had to do an internship, and my intern teacher came to me and said, "Hey, your first intern is going to be at Cotner Funeral Home." And I was
yeah, exactly.
I said, "Hey, I want to do like marketing," and he's like, "I know, but you just go there, and I know the boss, and he's great." And sure enough, I came here, and I've had a great time the last 2 years doing what I do. We had an intern this year, Ryan, who did the same thing. A funeral home, I don't want to do that. He came here and sat with me in Austin and saw what we did, and now he's thinking about a career in communications.
Yeah, so. and you can look at it this way: is yes, it's a funeral home, but you're going to learn the ins and outs of marketing, especially on a small scale. We have a lot of marketing interns come through Nationwide, and what I will tell them is that not everybody wants to work corporate. Not everybody wants to work agency. Some people just want to do it on a small scale, and that's fine. Yeah. You can make a perfectly great, happy living doing something on a small scale. But just because on the surface you're like, "Oh, I'm working in a funeral home." Growing up, I spent a lot of time in this funeral home, and so I understand. It's yes, on the surface it's a funeral home, but what about what are the people like? What are you going to learn from the folks that are working in here? Because everybody's got a story. I consider myself a storyteller as a public relations professional.
Definitely.
So you learn the stories, you learn what they have, what kind of wisdom they can impart upon you, and then will we work at Cotner Funeral Home? Will you be an intern at Cotner Funeral Home? Probably not, right? But you'll take what you learned here and you'll apply it to where you're going to be going from going forward.
That was actually one of the first things when I came to the funeral home and interviewed with Barth, because we had like little interviews that we did for the internship. One of the things I almost immediately was like, okay, maybe this is a good fit, is the fact that he has so much pride in his community, and I have so much pride in the same community, Reynoldsburg. And so that really connected us, and it really drove this sort of mission of This is Reynoldsburg, and you helped me out with that vision when you first met with me in Austin, and that's been amazing. And so, I think when I first started, I was like a funeral home, but now that I'm into it, it's evolved into something totally different.
Yeah, and you gotta see the whole field when it comes to these kind of things, right? And this happens with when you're young because you don't have the experiences. It takes time to learn these kind of things. So you get caught kind of like I'm in just this one swim lane, but I'm not looking. But once you see the whole pool, yes, your work here with at Cotner Funeral Home, you're developing your marketing skills, you're developing this podcast, which is a great thing. But at the same time, you're meeting people, you're making contacts. What my experience has been is that 85% of what you're going to do in life is all about the relationships that you make and what doors people can open up for you and connecting dots. Right? Yeah. You're going to find that the more people you meet and the more you open your mind up to things, you're going to be able to problem solve in an amazing fashion because of the people that you've met.
Wow. Awesome. So then you go to college. Getting into college, was there ever a point where you thought maybe this isn't for me, or maybe your major isn't for you, or anything like that?
No, I'm a very I'm a very all or nothing kind of person. So when I put my mind to something, it's like either do it or don't. Do or do not. There is no try, as a wise Jedi Master Yoda once told everybody. So, but I was just so determined. It's something I really, really wanted to do. I like speaking in public. I love sports. I knew that a 4'10" kid coming out of high, in his freshman year of high school, eventually be 5'9", was not going to make a career in the NBA or is not going to be playing soccer professionally. So what's my other option? How do I still stay involved in sports and put my talent to good use? And I've always, like I said, I've always liked public speaking. A lot of people, that's the last thing they want to do is get up in front of a crowd and talk to people. But I love it. I love to do it. So, one of my English teachers said you should think about going into some kind of journalism, the sportscasting. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that. So now, if I've known how competitive it was coming out of college, I may have taken a different route. So ignorance was bliss in this standpoint because it's very, very difficult to get a job in television sportscasting. So, but I just immersed myself in it, and you've got to put the time, you got to put the effort, and you got to pay your dues. The great thing about OU is it's the 9th best journalism school in the country when it comes to broadcast. So I was going to the right place, and it has a lot of, at least then it had a lot of great opportunities. Now it's like, it's the premier place to go if you want to get a broadcast degree. So I had a lot of ways to make my mistakes early and hone my craft, and that really helped because when I was able to go out, and I'm very much dating myself, but when I graduated in '98 and we had to send out these VHS tapes as resumes, right? Now it's all on YouTube, so it's great. You kids today, you got it so easy. But when we sent out these tapes, I had a great tape, right? Yeah. And so I got calls immediately. So I ended up getting a job in Rockford, Illinois, which is west of Chicago by about an hour. So it's right on the Wisconsin-Illinois border. And I would go to Bears games. I would go to Cubs games, Blackhawks games, Bulls games, all that kind of thing. We had a great minor league sports system and a great high school sports system in Rockford. So I had plenty of things to cover. And I came out of the gate from OU. They didn't have to teach me anything. They didn't have to train me on how to edit, anything like that. They didn't have to teach me how to write. I mean, certain things they would have to kind of help me out with, but I could hit the ground running, and that's a big benefit. So, I never once questioned what I wanted to do, and anytime something would come up that would kind of veer me off. Like, everybody has these moments where, okay, I'm not on the straight and narrow. I'm not, you veer off the path a little bit, but I always had something that brought me back to it. And it was that, I want to do this. This is what I want to be. This is who I want to be. And that always kind of brought me back to the path that I wanted to be on. Yeah.
Going back to college a little bit, what was the hardest thing you think was in the transfer from high school to college? A lot of listeners probably right now are going through that transfer. What was the hardest thing about that?
For me, going from a very small school, a very small private Christian school, to going to what some people would call a secular college at Ohio University. I mean, I had some people might call it a secular college, which means there was a lot of drinking and sex and all that kind of stuff. I had a graduating class of 16 people. 16 people. And so I went from that to my graduating class at OU was 4,000 people. So it's a little bit different. So and it has its pros and cons. It's very nice to have a small community of people that you can count on. And, some of the high school people I still talk to this day. Yeah. But at the same time, it was nice to be able to broaden my horizons a little bit. See a little bit more what the world had to offer. It's you've got a good foundation of who you are and who you want to be. You get that from your parents. You get that sometimes from high school. But at the same time, there's a whole diverse way of thinking out there, and it could be. And diversity is some people think diversity is just a white, black, brown kind of thing. What I found is that. As a white male who grew up in Whitehall, and as there's white men that live in Reynoldsburg, which is separated by 10 people, just because we're white males living in a the same kind of situation, we have completely different, diverse ways we think about things. So definitely. You will think about something completely different, even though we may have grown up in the same neighborhood, and that's brought on by a bunch of different factors, by our family past, our upbringing. All that kind of stuff. So when you go to a place like OU, where people are coming from all over the world, you're seeing a diverse, way of looking at things. And it kind of made me, it makes you question what you've been learning, but at the same time, you get a sense of, oh, this is why people think this way. And I've only been taught this one way because they didn't have this other viewpoint. And so what I try to do now is, instead of immediately judging somebody on, no, this is right, this is wrong, I try to empathize with them and see, oh, what makes you think this way? What are the experiences that you've had in your life that have, forged your thought process on that? And it helps me be a little bit more empathetic to their position. And then at the same time, it makes me question and either strengthen or reevaluate my belief system. Yeah. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's I think if we had a little bit more of empathy in this world and thinking more about why are people thinking the way they think, we would meet in the middle on a lot more things as opposed to being so diverse. But now I'm on a soapbox, so I appreciate it.
No, you're fine.
Sorry about that.
That was actually one of the things that Barth talked about a lot in his interview about going to OU. One of the biggest advantages he said was also the diversification of who was there, and thinking differently, not only in race but in terms of some people's parents split up, some people's didn't. Some it's just different, religion, whatever it might be. The diverse mindsets that come out of that.
Yeah, and I think if we got to listen more, man. We really got to listen more, and not just. I think what people listen and then hear, because I think a lot of people, what they do is they have a conversation with somebody, but instead of actually listening to what they're saying, they're thinking about, how am I going to respond to this? And so what I do is, in anything, I try to listen to what somebody says and say, okay, I'm going to think about what you said. I'm going to go process it and then come back to me in a day or two and let's have a conversation again. Yeah. And so I can process what you said instead of back and forth. And you said this, so I'm going to say this and you can say this. And we get too caught up in that. And so going to OU, a lot of times you would start thinking, I would hear people say things. I'm like, man, I never thought of it that way. Let me think about what you're saying. Let me process it, take it back, apply it to how I think about things, and then we can have a little bit more meaningful conversation.
And even in daily conversations in my job, it's sort of like I had to learn that through experience, sadly. And it's like I'll talk too fast on a subject and I won't really listen, and then a day or two later they'll be like, no, this is not what I want, or you have to change this about the video or whatever you're doing. And so now I've learned to sort of just shut up and listen, get what they're saying truly, and then move on from it.
And it's something you will constantly do in your life. So for instance, 3 days ago, I'm in a meeting with somebody, and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to come in there and I'm going to counsel these people on how they should go. First 10 minutes is me talking. And at the end of 10 minutes, they go, you completely missed our point, Jarrett. You need to do. I'm like, oh, okay. Why don't you be quiet and listen to what they're saying, hear what they say, take it back, and then come back with a, So it's you're always learning. That is something that you do not become an expert in ever. It's a constant, continuing education in yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So staying on the topic of college for one last question. Nowadays, it's very hard for some people to go to college, and it's even harder to pay for college. Would you say that college is worth it for everyone?
No.
Okay.
No. And I think that is the big misnomer about college, is that only way that you're going to be happy and successful in this life is if you go to college. Vocational schools are a great opportunity. Some people come right out of high school and they find a job and they find a career. What I will tell people every time is that if you find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to follow the traditional path of everybody else. Again, it gets back to the point we were talking about earlier, is keep your mind open. Look at the entire field. You'll get pressure from your parents. You get pressure from your teachers. You get pressure from everybody to say, hey, this is college. This is what you want to do. You can get, especially your generation, which are extremely self-reliant. They're extremely entrepreneurial. And so they find solutions to problems that I don't even think about. So if you find it, we see all the time, what is it? I just saw a kid that made $3 million winning a Fortnite tournament at 16 years old. And
me and Austin were just talking about that the other day.
Can you imagine being a 16-year-old and having $3 million in your pocket? That would be dangerous for me. So I was like, man, I'm eating nothing but gummy bears and buying, Nintendo tapes. This is 1991 when I was 16 years old. But at least I'm going to have a nice car. But this generation of any is more poised to take technology and use it to a point where they can make the next iPhone, make the next drivable car, autonomous vehicles. I think you're going to see an explosion of small business and entrepreneurials coming out of your generation, and they will not take the traditional college path. Yeah. My son, he's 14 years old. He's getting ready to start as a freshman at Tays Valley High School. He's very much like me in the sense that he thinks he knows what to do at 14 years old. He wants to be an anesthesiologist and a doctor. And so I know. And he's already going to, now, you can't be an entrepreneurial anesthesiologist, right? You're not going to go to Nationwide Children's Hospital and they're going to be like, oh yeah, where'd you do your residency? Oh, I was in my garage and put a couple of squirrels to sleep. And no, it's not going to work that way. So he
kicked out the building.
He has got to go down that traditional college path. But find your passion. Do the research on how you're going to make your passion work. And if it's college, great. If it's a vocational school, great. Some people like to work with their hands. And I think I read a study the other day that said that in 20 years, we're not going to have enough electricians, plumbers, contractors, things like that. So you can make a very, very good 80, 90, 100 grand as an electrician or a plumber. So what's wrong with that? If you like working with your hands, you like building, do it. What's the problem?
Yep. My thing has always been, it always frustrates me when I ask friends or I see a conversation going on, because at our age, it's very much, oh, hey, where are you going to college? And the kids who aren't going to college go, nowhere. And they, you could see it in their face. They sort of get disappointed. Yeah. And it's like, man, it's okay. Like, you're not going to college, but what else do you have? Well, what's the next step, even if you're not going to college?
Yeah, the concept of a gap year, I think, is fascinating. So and here's what I will tell you. When I first when I graduated high school in '93, immediately went to OU. Got into OU. Went fall quarter of '93. Went for the first quarter, and I didn't have my student loans in order. I didn't. I had saved up. I'd worked. So I had enough money to pay for room and board for the first quarter. But OU has this policy: if you don't pay them, they won't let you go to school there. So
it's surprising.
It's weird that way, right? So I had to drop out. I dropped out for 2 quarters, and I moved in with my parents. I worked. I saved up. I got my FAFSA form in order. I got my college loans in order. I got Pell Grants, things like that. Went back in '94, and then completed the traditional 4-year program. So again, my parents' generation feels a certain way that this is a way that things need to be done. My generation feels that this is a way that needs to be done. But every generation figures out a new way to do things. And, the older generation will frown upon it. They're like, oh, then back in my day, this is the way we did things. And, so get out of that mindset. Find new, innovative ways to reach your goals. The journey is the fun part, right? Again, we only got one shot at this life, so make the most out of it. So if the traditional college route is the way to go, fine. Vocational school is the way to go, fine. Just find your path. Your path is unique, and take that path.
Yeah, definitely. So then as you graduated college, you said you worked at the radio station in Rockford.
TV station at Rockford, sorry.
TV station, okay, sorry.
I don't have a face for radio. I do now, but I didn't then.
So then after that, what's your next step?
So I did TV for 8 years in the same market. I did sports reporting on the weekends for 6 years, and then early morning news anchoring for 2 years. So back to that whole getting up at 4:00 in the morning. Everything kind of prepared me for that. So when I started, I really loved doing weekend sports. It was great. But I got married, had a small child, and I said I need to be home on the weekends for my kid. Yeah. So I talked to my news director. He said, well, we've got this morning role positioning opening up. Do you want to do that? I said, hey, it's fine. I'll do it. No problem. So now it's getting up every morning at 2:45 a.m. Rolling out of bed, going to bed at 6:30, 7:00 in the evening. You come home. My wife would get home from work at like 5. We'd see each other for a couple hours. I'm like, night, sweetheart, going to bed. So that was tricky. And it was a different kind of vibe. So sports is usually pretty fun. Yeah, you have the agony of defeat. There's a couple of this kid got hurt, he got a concussion, or he was killed in the field. So, but those stories are few far between in sports. In news, it's every day. So you're talking about drug deals that have gone wrong, and murders, car accidents, levies that aren't passing, people that are getting laid off, that kind of stuff. And it starts to wear on you. I'm a pretty happy person in general, right? I don't like to consider myself a pessimist. I'm an optimistic kind of guy. And so after 2 years of that, I was getting very. I just can't. I'm coming home and I'm going, oh, I can't believe this is terrible. And I remember specifically the day I said I got to get out of news. We got a breaking news call. It was a fire, so I had to go to, and I went to this fire with my photographer. And I ran into the county coroner, and she said, yeah, there was 3 people killed in this fire. I said, okay, that's great. And so she saw a young lady start to walk to the scene. And she said, give me a second. I've got to go tell this young lady that her mother and father just burned to death in this fire. Gosh. Right. So I remember, and this is horrible when I think about it. And I remember elbowing my photographer saying, make sure you follow this person because she's going to tell, and it's going to be a cool shot, and you're going to see the emotion on their face. And so this woman fell to her knees when the coroner said, oh, I'm sorry to inform you, your parents just died in this. and you could just see her life disintegrate right in front of her. And I remember looking at, yeah, we got the shot. And I went back to my house that night. I'm like, what is wrong with you when you are celebrating in someone's misery? So I had a really, conversation with my wife that night. And I said, I've got to get out of news because my whole life perspective is changing and I don't like the direction it's going. So, my parents still lived in Columbus. My mom worked for the Ohio Department of Education, I believe, at that point. And I'd had a conversation with my mom, and I told her the story that I just told you. And she said, well, have you ever thought about going into public relations? And I said, what's public relations, right? I'm not classically trained on PR. And she's like, basically, you're writing press releases. You're talking to the media. And I said, I was a member of the media for 8 years. I have a journalism degree. How hard can this be? And so I applied for a position at the Ohio Department of Insurance. And it was a public information officer position, which is basically PR, and got hired. And so awesome. I moved back to Columbus. And at the time, when I grew up in Columbus in 1990, in the early 90s was a cow town. There was nothing here. Like I can remember when there wasn't a 670 loop. Wow. And yeah, I know, right? That is dating me. So my wife and I would come back and we would visit, and the arena district was being built up. So Nationwide Arena was coming around. And I remember walking around the arena district going, man, this place is getting cool. This place is awesome. I would love to be able to raise my family here. So the opportunity presented ourselves to come back. My son at the time was like 1.5 years old. So it's like he didn't know anything about Rockford. He wasn't going to remember anything about Rockford. My in-laws were pretty mad at me because I was taking their only daughter away from them, but it was only an 8-hour drive, so it was fine. And so I learned the craft of public relations with the Ohio Department of Insurance, right? So it was a safe space, safe space. It was state government, so there was rules and restrictions. But again, I was able to make my PR mistakes, in an area where it wasn't really highly visible. I met a lot of great people, made some great contacts, made some connections. So I did that for 5 years as a PIO. And then the Kasich administration came on, and they asked me to take a role as a legislative liaison. So now I'm really out of my comfort zone, right? The only thing I knew about how laws were formed was watching Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill, just an ordinary. That's the only thing I knew. Like I kind of remember what.
Surprisingly, exactly. That's our generation too.
Exactly. But again, they're like, hey, listen, you're really good at talking to people. You're good at communicating. You're good about building relationships. So we think you can succeed in this. I'm like, hey, I'll try anything new. So again, not closing my mind to anything, keeping an open mind, learning different things and talking to different people, making a lot of great relationships. So I learned everything about insurance, right? So I learned the ins and outs, what's comprehensive, coverage, what's collision, what's a deductible, what's a premium, all these, and then the little nuances of how you write state law. So I assisted with writing state insurance law. Wow. And now a very small part, right? But I helped out with it. Yeah. So, in the time that I was in legislative affairs, we had 4 laws passed. So that's a cool experience going onto the state house floor and hearing in the state House of Representatives and the state Senate, listening to senators and representatives debate and talk about what you've been working on, and then passing it, and then going to the governor's office and watching him sign that bill. It's pretty neat. So, but at the same time, I was very much, this is great, I'm having fun, but my sweet spot is communications, man. I really want to get back to the communications game. And so we had some people that worked at ODI that had worked at Nationwide. And they said, well, they got some openings. If you need a reference, let us know. I said, okay. So, applied. And then within 4 weeks, I was putting in my 2 weeks notice at ODI and getting a job at Nationwide. Wow. And again, it goes back to, if you would have told me when I was a senior in high school that I would be working in insurance and that it would be the greatest job I ever had, I would say you're crazy. So then started working at Nationwide, did their property and casualty. So property and casualty, for people out there that may not know, is your homeowner's insurance, your auto's insurance, renter's insurance, pet insurance, things like that. Did PR for them for a year, and was, again, loved doing what I was doing, but was volunteering for, helping out, doing things like public relations at NASCAR races and public relations for the Memorial Tournament, and just kind of just helping out, like emptying garbage, or cleaning up after in these hospitality suites, doing the small stuff. But making sure that I was listening and learning and talking to the people that were in charge of those things. So, and during that year I was doing PNC public relations, I was helping out with that. And then the lady that was in charge of doing the sports marketing public relations took a job at Bristol Motor Speedway as a communications director at a racetrack, one of the most famous racetracks in NASCAR. And that position opened up. So then I slid into that one. and it was because I did all those volunteer efforts. Again, I could hit the ground running. Like I knew I knew what kind of storylines there were. I knew the talking points. I knew what kind of storylines they were going for. I knew the players. I knew people that I needed to work with. I made media contacts. So it was a seamless transition. And then I did that for 5 years. And I'm telling you, easily the greatest job, the most fun I've ever had in my life. I mean, I checked so many bucket list items during those 5 years. Oh, tell us a few. So, so I've been to 5 Super Bowls. I've been to 5 Daytona 500s. I've been to 6 or 7 memorial tournaments. A lot of NASCAR races. I've been. I'm trying to think. I've counseled some of the bigger names in sports. With our sports marketing platforms, they're all usually community service based. So, for instance, in the NFL, we are the presenting sponsor of the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year, which goes to the NFL player that exhibits excellence both on and off the field. So people that do a lot of community service. So it really aligns with what we do as a company when we talk about giving back to our communities. Is what Nationwide's all about. We make the communities in which our associates and members live and work better places to be. So it all aligns with what we're doing from that standpoint. So the work that we do has purpose, and working with those athletes. I've worked with Thomas Davis and Jerome Bettis, and the list goes on and on. Warwick Dunn and Cameron Hayward, and and just these guys, and to see the passion in their eyes about what they're doing in the community. They get so excited about going to a school and helping clean up their communities and doing these service projects and creating these foundations that make the world a better place. And we don't hear about that enough, right? When you, especially, in sports in general, the things that are making headlines are the negative. And if we spent a fraction of the time talking about all the positive these guys are doing in the community, you'd be very, very surprised. So helping to tell those stories and shining a national platform, or giving them a national platform and shining a spotlight on the work that they're doing to audiences that may not know about it it's great for me. Like I'm not working for an insurance company. I'm working for a community service platform, and which is great. So doing that gives me purpose and makes it exciting. And at the same time, we're building our the Nationwide brand. At the end of the day, we're here to make sure that we are protecting our members' needs. And you need to do that by selling policies. Definitely. And so I'm doing all that in the back end. But to be able to come out in front and just give these guys a platform to tell a story about the great work that they're doing and maybe change the narrative a little bit is fantastic. So, the stories are we don't have enough time. But
so when people hear, it sounds like a lot of fun, right? It sounds like you're going to Super Bowl, going to Daytona. What is the work aspect of when you go to those vacations? Because I'm kind of wondering too.
So it is a lot of time in hotel rooms. Okay. It is not like I'm not going to.
That's fine.
Okay, I'm not schmoozing with people. Like I'm not, sitting on the sidelines rubbing elbows with Jerry Jones. That's not what I'm doing. So a lot of it is long days, 15, 16-hour days. You start in the morning. For instance, a typical Super Bowl trip for me is I get there on a Thursday, and we have set up a series of interviews with our Walter Payton Man of the Year nominees ahead of time. And so I get in on a Thursday, and I go to Radio Row, the media center, and I walk the route. Like I check in with all the producers. I check in with the different anchors that they're going to be talking to, make sure that they've got the talking points that I've spent 3 months developing. And it's a lot of walking around. It's a lot of prep work, right? And then the next day, it's because we like to get on the morning shows. You're up at 3:30 in the morning. You're up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm there before anybody gets there. And I'm walking the route again to make sure everybody's got what they need. I hold a meeting with my staff, and I say, okay, you've got Jerome Bettis, you've got Warwick Dunn, you've got Chris Long, you've got Cameron Hayward, you've got Charles Tillman. Here are your schedules. Go out and conquer. And I'm very much a hands-off kind of person. Like these are all professionals. I know who I'm working with. I trust all these people. I'm not going to micromanage them. Do your thing. You do you. You do your thing. So and then from 5:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. we are hitting interviews. We're doing 5, 6, 7 interviews with each one of these nominees, and it's a lot of fun. It's a sprint though, man. It is like by the end of the day.
How many people were on your staff when you would go to these events?
Well, we use a couple different outside agencies to help us out. So we have a PR agency and we have an activation agency, and so it's a collaborative effort. So we work with all these people. We get on. We're doing weekly phone calls for 6 months ahead. Heading just for something like the Super Bowl. So. So it's a team of like 12, and my job is to make sure everybody has what they need. And I worked with Chris Long, who ended up winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year award that last year. So so they go out and they do their thing, and then we would do the Radio Row stuff until like 9 or 10, and then from 10 to 12 we have a community service event with all 32 nominees. So we go. This past year it was in Atlanta. So we went to an Atlanta Boys and Girls Club, and we did some really cool community service project out there. And then after that it's a lunch, and then after that it's more media. So it's just it's a long day. So it's not rubbing elbows. It is not throwing swilling sherry and drinking champagne with there's time for that later, and we will sit back and do fist bumps and beers afterwards, and congratulate each other on a hard, on working hard and getting the word out. But when I say I go to the Super Bowl, I've only been to one actual game, right? But the rest of the time, I found I went to Super Bowl 49. I'm a huge New England Patriots fan. So that was the year that they should have given Marshawn Lynch the ball and let him run, but instead they picked it off. Like, that happened right in front of me. But what I found is that the best place to watch the Super Bowl is from your living room. So what I've always said is that, listen, I don't want a ticket. I want to be home with my family. I want to watch the game with my family. So I tend to leave at, on a Sunday morning. What we try to do is we try to line up an interview with the winner with either like the Today Show or Good Morning America or Fox Business or Fox News or something like that. And then once that's over, that usually happens at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I try to get on a flight to get out of there. Right, I want to get home. And the easiest day to travel on Super Bowl Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday because everybody's at the game or everybody's at the thing. On Saturday night, they do the NFL honor presentation, which is when they award all the different awards for the NFL. Yeah. So it's like MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, all that kind of stuff. And then the last award is the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year because it's the most prestigious. It's a very small fraternity of guys that have this. So they do that on Saturday night, and we come back, and then I pack. And because I've spent a lot of time in the hotel room, right? Again, I'm not out partying. I'm not going to all these great events. I'm working, and then I come home, and I see a lot of hotel rooms. I see a lot of conference centers.
Definitely.
I don't see, I don't get to go to a lot of the cool parties that everybody goes to. So, and then by Sunday, I try to be home, and I try to be sitting in front of the tube watching. In the last 4 years, watching my Patriots playing the Super Bowl.
Awesome.
So it's a lot of work. It really is. And people say, "Oh, you get to travel, you get to do all these amazing things." It's 6 months of work heading into it, and then it's followed by a 6-hour sprint, on a Friday morning, and then it's home. So.
That's the thing that I've always sort of thought about when people say, "Oh, that's all they do." Like, that's all they do is just go to Super Bowls and walk around with athletes. Mm-hmm. It's like you don't know everything they probably have to do in the background to get that prepared.
And it's all preparation. It's all working together on the front end because again, you work 6 months for the Super Bowl. We work 6 months. For 3 days, and for the Memorial Tournament, we work 8 months for 4 days. For 4 days of activation, there is 8 months of preparation that goes into it because there's so many moving pieces. So I am extremely fortunate that I work with amazing, amazing people. People that I've spent a lot of time in the trenches with these folks. For the Daytona 500, what we typically do to save costs on money on hotels, because during the Daytona 500, it's $400 a night. 5-night minimum at a hotel, so that's $2,000 per person to stay in a hotel room by themselves. So what we end up doing is we rent a house together. So there's 6 of us staying in a house. We all get our own rooms. But it saves the company a lot of money. Yeah. And so you spend a lot of time with people. We're sitting, jeans, or we're sitting in like in our jammies watching, TV or watching Big Bang Theory, and you get to know people. Yeah. And these folks are like my family. Blood, sweat, and tears. We have so many memories together. And so when I took this new position at Nationwide, and it takes me out of the sports marketing area now, so like I don't do that anymore. I'm still helping out, but I don't do it anymore. That weighed into my decision on whether or not I wanted to do it, because I love making those memories, and I love these people, and they're amazing, amazing human beings, and they're very best at what they do. Yeah. But at the same time, it's kind of selfish of me to keep this all to myself. I want to give the next generation of PR professionals a chance to experience the wow of going to Radio Row for the first time, or standing on the first tee box when Tiger Woods is hitting his tee shot at the Memorial Tournament. So those are experiences that it would be selfish of me just to keep all to myself. So I'm excited for the new role. I'm excited to do it, but it's bittersweet.
Yeah. So quickly, we're running out of time.
I'm sorry. I'm rambling, man. I'm sorry.
No. It's good. It's been great. But I'm trying to get as many questions as possible because I'm very interested in the stuff that you're doing. What is your next role, and describe to us a little bit about how that differs from your previous role at Nationwide?
So it's more of a leadership role. It's more strategic thinking than as opposed to tactical. And when I say tactical, it's like writing. Like I'm writing a press release. I'm writing some talking points. I'm pitching the media. This is more of seeing the whole field, right? Yeah. How do I connect dots? How do I, okay, this is what this area of the business is doing. This is what this area of the business is doing. Is there a way that they can benefit each other? And that it's going to be more strategic thinking. Mm-hmm. So it's out of my comfort zone. Like I've been doing the same thing for 5 years at Nationwide where it's been more tactical. So now, if you're not, in my opinion, especially for me, if I'm not growing, I'm dying. Like I do not want to get stagnant. I want to flex my muscles a little bit. So,
that quote's about growth.
Yeah, exactly. So I am always pushing myself to be better. So it'll be more strategic thinking.
Yeah, definitely. So now we're going to get into a little bit of the general questions that I ask all our guests when they come on.
Fire away.
So in your opinion, what is your sort of definition of success?
Are you happy?
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, success is not always about money. Success. My son is very money oriented. That's why I want to be an anesthesiologist. I make so much money, Dad. I'm like, yeah, but are you going to be happy doing it? So if at the end of the day, when you come home, are you happy? Are you smiling? That's success for me.
Yeah. So then, what was the most difficult thing about being around 20 years old?
Oh, just not knowing who you are. I mean, my high school principal used to tell me, Jarrett, you won't know your head from your butt until you're 25. And I'm like, man, that's spot on, boy. You know, and I think that's true. Not knowing who you are, trying to find your place in the field, and having the self-confidence of knowing that at 20, every failure feels like it's the end of the world. And if you think about it, it's really not. The things that I got so upset about when I was 20 years old, I don't even think about now. Yeah. So that's my advice to everybody is like, hey, I know it hurts now, but man, just take a breath. Your pain is unique, and it's something that you need to acknowledge, but it will pass.
Yeah. So someone who's in high school right now, who's thinking about doing what you do now, PR and communications, marketing, that whole field, what is your advice to them right now?
Show initiative. Show a passion, be forward thinking, reach out to people. If it's something, one of the things that I recognize right away in some of the interns that come work at Nationwide and the people that we hire as interns is that they reach out. They're proactive on these kind of things. And they never say, yeah, man, that's kind of beneath me. I'm not feeling that, right? Like I said, I have seen our chief marketing officer at our company help out with cleaning up afterwards. If the CMO can do it, I can do it, definitely. Right? And that's what I tell people all the time is like, you're not too good to pick up garbage. You're not too good to wipe down a counter. You know, we are all in this together. So do the little things and do the little things well. That's my biggest advice.
Great. Mm-hmm. Now, what are your 3 tips for someone in college?
Oh man, geez. Clean up your room. That's a big thing. You know, keep your room straight. No, just ask questions, you know, seek guidance, find a mentor. That's the biggest thing because they've been down the path before and they know, they know where the holes are, where the pitfalls are, and they can help you navigate through those. You know, we do not go through this life alone. You know, you can't do things on your own. As much as we like to think we can, we need help. Find someone that can help you out. Keep your mouth shut and your eyes and ears open. And that's something that I struggle with to this day, right? And it's certainly something I struggled with when I was in my early 20s. And be aware of your surroundings, right? Especially in this day of social media, you know, think about the things that you are doing and how they can be perceived. Because when you when I think about the things that I did when I was 20, man, I am thankful that there was not social media around because I don't know how my life would have turned out. So, and this is a 4th one, just be respectful of each other, man. Be helping each other out. Yeah. Be thoughtful about how's my actions going to impact this next person. You know, from the smallest things of, I didn't turn my turn signal on when I switched lanes. You know, how are my actions going to impact the next person coming behind? Yeah, empathy is all about it, man. Make the journey for the next person easier.
Definitely. Yeah. Jarrett, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, I had such a good time listening to you. If you didn't know this was Before We're 30, you can get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course YouTube. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.
Cool. I rambled. I'm sorry. No, I get talking. I start rambling.
You literally, all my guests say that.
Oh, really?
They all say, I rambled. No, that's the point.